Imagine waking up in the morning and you find that there has been a deduction done in your social grant account. Have you had that problem? Well, today we're covering that, and I'm joined by the KwaZulu-Natal Regional Manager, Evashnee Naidu, and we're talking about more into this. Evashnee, take us through. How do you wake up in the morning and you 200 rands less in your account?
Portia, this is becoming such a pandemic in our country. Social grant beneficiaries are absolutely being preyed upon by insurance companies in our country. They are doing this by manipulative and extractive means. They are either going door to door to households where they know pensioners are living, getting their ID numbers, and then the following month deductions are appearing on people's accounts. They are also offering people things like food parcels, ShopRite vouchers, and other things without alerting the beneficiary to the fact that whilst you are giving us your details, your personal information, we are actually then going to deduct for a funeral policy in the following month.
Right.
And in other ways, we're finding that particularly insurance companies position themselves on paydays at retailers, knowing beneficiaries will pass by, and then using methods like advertising to them or saying to them, let me just check for you if you actually qualify for a funeral policy, but we won't be actually taking any deductions off your account.
Right.
And the beneficiary unknowingly gives their ID number to this particular entity without knowing that they're actually now consenting to a funeral deduction that actually comes off their grant in the following month. So a lot of the times it is because the beneficiary is illiterate about what's going on. They do not understand what informed consent means, so there's no real consent in the matter, and they just hand over their details thinking that they're testing a system or they're getting access to a free benefit, whereas the company knows full well that they are taking these details away from a beneficiary in order to make a deduction in the following month from their social grant through the 10% allowed deduction of the SASSA legislation.
That is just ruthless. I remember this back in the years when we started talking with you from Black Sash that there are deductions that are not meant to. I remember back in the day, Gogos were able to buy furniture from furniture shop. They had challenges there, and government said no more. Now, here we are back again, but this time the sneaky people are back and they're targeting older people. The crazy part, I'll give you a typical example. I've seen that happening. They will go to a normal radio station and they'll say, we are a company, we'll give you 20,000, we'll give you 25, 50,000 Coco, come through and we'll come to you, because they do come to you, to your household. And here you are short on your money. And a general public in the comments, maybe they will say, SASSA money is just money, they didn't earn it. Now, how do we put this into the context of a human rights perspective?
The right to access social security is guaranteed in the Constitution.
Right.
It is not about just earning it. It is a dignity issue where the Constitution provides that for people in our country who cannot take care of themselves, government must put measures into place to protect our people. And through this, we have the Social Security, the South African Social Security Agency, which is SASSA, which administers the payment of social grants in our country. And as we know, social grants are means tested, which means they don't go to everyone automatically.
Right.
They go to the most poorest and the most vulnerable people in our communities who cannot take care of themselves. So this is a constitutional right that people are entitled to if they cannot look after themselves. So anybody who's challenging this and saying that, oh, people are not entitled to this, we're creating a welfare state, actually doesn't understand the impact that this little amount of money makes to a particular household. We also know in South Africa, social grants are not ever for an individual, particularly a Gogo's grant, the older person's grant, feeds a household. We have some of the highest rates of unemployment in South Africa in the world. We also have the triple threat of unemployment, inequality, and poverty that threatens our existence every day as South Africans. We also have a community that is food insecure, where people every day have to make a choice, not what they eat, but if they are able to eat. And we cannot be a society that then starts making assumptions about whether this money is charitable or not.
Absolutely, that's absolutely true. And you just took away my question where I was going to say the challenge is that normal South Africans, I mean middle class people, will not understand what happens in the ground, everyday life, as you just well put it together. Now, Evashnee, here's a serious point. The most common complaints that you have been receiving on these grant deductions, how wide has it went so far?
It started off, we didn't realize that it was as widespread as it is. But the more and more that we investigate around these issues, and the more and more Black Sash and our community partners monitor the administration of social grants across the country, we realize that it is actually escalating on a day-to-day basis. Every month that Black Sash goes into the field with our community partners to monitor the administration of grants, we meet more and more people coming to SASSA offices looking for assistance in how to actually cancel these deductions, because beneficiaries give over their information and they only find out in the following month that there's a deduction coming off their grant, which they do not know where it comes from. They then have to go to SASSA offices to find out who is taking away this money from their account, and then they find out actually this is a funeral deduction. And when they think back on it, they realize this was when they had handed over their information to somebody or a third party, and this possibly could have been how the deduction is now happening in the following month.
That third party. Hey, shame. They have been doing this for years. And I do not understand how, because there are laws in place. The POPIA, the information regulator. How is this even getting out of hand in this way? I'm asking Evashnee because I have witnessed this. My daughter said, "Ma, Gogo took an insurance when we were at work. But they didn't require the card. They just wanted Gogo's ID." Now, it's bothered me that how did that even go? And why are they targeting older people when there's no person who will consent on their behalf?
In terms of the law, the deductions from social grants are one of the most strictly regulated pieces of legislation that we have.
Right.
In terms of the Social Assistance Act, only 10% of a grant beneficiary's account can be deducted prior to that money going into a social grant beneficiary's account. And the only allowable deduction is for funeral policies. This means that SASSA has put measures into place in order to vet and authenticate that it is informed consent, that the beneficiary has given a mandate for this to happen, and there are also requirements on behalf of the insurer to prove that they are meeting these requirements before a deduction can happen. However, as you rightly say, all they require is an ID number.
Right.
And then they actually have found a loophole in the system, which seems to be the fact that SASSA doesn't have the capacity to vet and authenticate all of the mandates that are coming through from across the country. So they supplement this by giving in bulk mandates, where then SASSA obviously is not able to go through individually to test whether all the criteria have met, and then they obviously may or may not be doing a blanket authentication and authorization and allows the deduction to go off. And so what we've seen is that all a beneficiary has to do is just give their ID number or a copy of the ID to the beneficiary, to the insurance company, and this allows them then to have access to your bank accounts and your details from which your SASSA grant is deposited into, submit this to SASSA, and then have the funeral policy come off as a deduction in the following month.
Wow, that is intense. That is intense. I imagine the deductions coming in that fashion. That's just... They're scamming. How are you guys scamming? Your insurance company people come through. Why are you scamming people? How are you doing these? Give us the ways and means. Are these legal or are they not? They really need to talk to us and give people actual facts. How they're doing this? Is it legal? Is it illegal that they're doing? Now, Evashnee, you just touched something that has been in the back of my mind for quite some time when it comes to the SASSA matters. The issue surrounding the cards. Now, when you go to SASSA office on the same matter and you're carrying the black card, as not vis-a-vis to now
bank
people going to the banks. What happens there, they say, as SASSA, we are no longer you are no longer my client. So you go to the Postbank. And we know Postbank, you go to a very shallow office on the sideline, on the side of the street where two kids are just sitting there with they punch two things and they give you a number, call the call center. And that's just it. Now, the disservice in that, because people were told, take the black card, is going to be the savior. Now the savior is no longer saving the community. With the this deduction in place, how safe are people's monies?
So you make a very valid point. In the previous era, we had the SASSA Gold Card.
Yes.
This was a ring-fenced bank account, and it was managed by SASSA. So all of the recourse issues that you had with regard to any deductions or any maladministration would be dealt with directly by SASSA.
Right.
When we moved out of the era where the SASSA card expired and we had to move to a Postbank black card or any other banking card, this became tricky because all of these cards are now open bank cards within the banking sphere. And so it means anybody can deduct from any of these cards so long as you supposedly give them a mandate.
Okay.
As you know, Postbank does not have any offices or branches anywhere in the country for you to walk into. These little side tables that you are seeing are only going to be there for a short period of time because they are there only for as long as Postbank is able to continue with the card replacement from the SASSA Gold Card to the Postbank Black Card. Besides the deductions coming out and the fact that there is no recourse available, we also know that there are technical glitches on a month-on-month basis on the Postbank cards where many beneficiaries do not get paid on the day that they are supposed to get paid. So the challenges with the Postbank card continues. And as you know, many beneficiaries have moved away and are now in the open banking space with the more reputable banks. But whether you're on a Postbank card or a banking card, SASSA is still not dealing with the recourse issue of the funeral deductions because the deduction actually comes off before the grant even hits your bank account of choice, which means the vetting and the authentication comes from SASSA itself, saying that the insurance company has met all the requirements and is able to deduct this amount from your social grant, and thereby we go ahead with this deduction. And that is where the loophole comes in, that SASSA is now not meeting its own mandate and validating its own requirements that it's put in. And this is where the challenge comes in for us as Black Sash. This is where we feel there needs to be tighter mechanisms in place to ensure that when you do deduct, you are ensuring that these insurance companies are meeting the requirements before you actually take this money away from a particular social grant beneficiary.
What a messy situation. It's quite I mean, how many grant recipients in South Africa? Millions and millions. And this is taking place. I remember back in the day, you had a campaign that's initially started Black Sash, or when I discovered Black Sash, it said, hands off our grants. Take us through what started that particular campaign.
Hands off our grants was started particularly because of this. So as you may know, Cash Paymaster Services was awarded the tender to pay social grants across the country in 2012. And Cash Paymaster Services developed the SASSA White Card at the time for all social grant beneficiaries to be able to access their grants. When the tender started, a few months into the tender and the payment of grants, Black Sash and partners across the country noted that there were deductions coming off from these white cards for 99 Rand, for 100 Rand, etc. And when you looked at it and when you got statements as to what these deductions were, it turned out that beneficiaries were being charged for things like airtime, water, electricity. In some areas, we even found deductions for things like firewood. And the beneficiary had never consented to any of these deductions. So the Hands of Our Grants campaign was purely because of the unauthorized and, as we believe, unlawful deductions that were coming off social grant beneficiaries' accounts where they did not give consent for this, which Black Sash challenged, and even SASSA took Cash Paymaster Services to court about these unlawful deductions. And through that process, as well as the Black Sash court case in 2017, we were able to get the ring-fence bank account in terms of the SASSA Gold Card to protect grant monies from third parties having access to it and deducting it at will.
Yeah, I remember that very well. It feels like it's been years, but here we are. We're still talking about the same, almost the same challenges, but now it's even more top tier because I mean, this sounds to me more like a security threat into people's accounts. Now, Evashnee, here we are in 2026. How can you, or what advice can you give to beneficiaries of SASSA in terms of the awareness? What should they look out for in terms of these guys you mentioned? They'll stand outside when you're coming to get your money, your SASSA money, and so forth. But what are the warning signs? So, some people are still getting calls. Press 1 now, press 2 now, and those people just want to take people's personal information. What are the warning signs that you can give to the beneficiaries?
I think this is a very challenging time for social grant beneficiaries, particularly if a grant beneficiary sees somebody at a pay site, or also if they look at the branding of these particular companies and the documentation that they use, because a lot of them even choose to take SASSA branding and put it onto their own materials to make them look legitimate. Even when they come door to door, they actually introduce themselves as SASSA affiliated or coming from SASSA in order to speak to social grant beneficiaries. And I think particularly with our elderly, the moment you come to them in what is perceived to be a official capacity from SASSA, they immediately think that they need to protect their grant monies by listening to this person and handing over whatever information this person asks of them so that they don't lose their grant in the following month. So what I would say to social grant beneficiaries, first and foremost, protect your ID number like your life, because it literally is your digital life in our country. The moment you hand over your ID number to somebody, they have access to all of your information, including your banking information, and thereby are able to then put these deductions through. So if you do not hand it over to any third party, that is going to go a long way to protecting your rights to your social grant and preventing somebody from having access to that. If unfortunately you fall prey to this because you willingly trusted somebody because you felt that they were there to help you, your first point of recourse is to go to a SASSA local office, find out what this deduction is coming in for, and then find out what the process is from that SASSA local office in order to stop this deduction from continuing. Because if you do not stop it, unfortunately, this deduction is going to continue. And the other aspect is that we also have a lot of financial illiteracy in our country. Our beneficiaries have been pushed into banking accounts without understanding banking processes. So they do not understand what a stop order is, what a debit order is, and how to use these processes in a banking sphere. For them, because it is their grant money, they automatically think that it is a SASSA issue, and sometimes even your own bank can help you. But where we have the challenge with regard to funeral deductions is that because it is coming through from SASSA, before it hits the bank account, banks are unfortunately not in a position to be able to assist, because it only comes, the money comes in after the deduction happens, before it actually hits the bank account, so they're not able to assist. It is something that is a SASSA mandate that has to be able to assist a beneficiary.
But the chances of misusing persons' details or personal details, how large are they, especially for people that are utilizing SASSA?
It's very large. So insurance companies, as you know, will only need your ID number. They don't ask you for your bank account. They don't ask you for a copy of your bank card. They don't even ask you which bank you're banking at. So they are able to find the loophole in SASSA system in order to beat the system, create an incapacity issue, and make sure that the deductions go through. And the further challenge that we've noted, Portia, is that even when you look at the contract that has been submitted to SASSA to vet and authenticate these particular funeral policies, where people have been scammed into taking these contracts, the beneficiaries that are named in these policies are not even known to the particular social grant beneficiary. So even if the person chooses to continue with this funeral deduction, when they pass away, if incorrect information has been given over to the insurer, or where the insurer has taken this through foul means, it means that the family doesn't even benefit when the person does pass away.
That is so okay. That is too much. So you take the actual policy and you keep on paying. but then you're still not going to benefit from it.
This happens when all that was taken from the beneficiary is just their ID number, and the proper form was not filled in according to the needs of the beneficiary.
So the literal thing, or what should a person do? A person who right now has a challenge, what's their first step they should do?
The first step, like I said, is to please go to a SASSA local office, find out which company is deducting the amounts, because sometimes even when the brokers come to you, they may actually give you a subsidiary company's details or somebody else's details, and you may not necessarily know who is actually deducting the amounts from your account until you get a statement that says which company it is. What we have found across the country, which is also very worrying for Black Sash, is that SASSA doesn't seem to have one straightforward recourse mechanism in how to deal with funeral deductions.
Right.
If you go to some offices, they are able to assist you, and they will say to you, bring in a copy of your bank statement, bring in a copy of your ID document, and bring in an affidavit to say that you did not consent to this funeral deduction, and we will be able to assist you. Sadly, not all offices are doing that. The majority of offices where our partners have been monitoring have been told that actually it is your responsibility to cancel this deduction. This is the company that's deducting the amount from you. Please go and call their call center and find out who they are and cancel the deduction on your own.
Okay.
From insiders in the industry, the insurance industry, we've been told that the moment you say to them, we want to cancel this deduction, they drop the call. They pass you from department to department. They tell you call back tomorrow. They say to you they can't hear you. They use all the tricks in the trade at the call centers to avoid actually cancelling that policy and continue deducting for as long as they can.
Wow. Oh, that's heartbreaking. Evashnee, as we just walk towards conclusion, goodness me, this is something, it's too much. Now, let's look into, you said, what paperwork should a person be required to bring in order to lodge the complaint at the SASSA offices?
Ideally, they need a copy of their bank statement, because all of these people are now banked either through Postbank or the original banks. They would need an affidavit from a police station where they would be saying that or outlining the fact that they did not consent to this funeral deduction coming off their grant, and a copy of their identity document for SASSA to be able to take this process further if these SASSA officers are helping with recourse.
And how do you guys as Black Sash assist them?
Black Sash has a helpline number, and we have a helpline chatbot where beneficiaries can access this. Our chatbot is available 24/7, and you can then make use of this facility and request information on how to help with this, or you can call or send a please call me to our helpline numbers, and Black Sash will be able to advise you on how to go about resolving these issues.
Wow. Okay, let's move away from the gloomy information. There's just a lot of information there. Let's play a game, Evashnee. I'm just going to read you a statement, and we're just going to answer us how fit, so that a person can learn faster. So the first one is, if your own grandmother called you tonight, said my grant money is missing, what would you tell them to do first?
If the grant money was not in the bank account when it was supposed to be in, it's a couple of things. So currently, SASSA is doing reviews or verifications around social grants, where they may have identified that there are other means of income coming into a bank account of a beneficiary. This would mean that maybe the beneficiary is over the means test and may not require the social grant. So if the money was not there on the day of payment, it means that the beneficiary has to go directly to a SASSA office to check whether they are due for a verification or review or not. Once they are there, SASSA will advise them as to what they need to bring in to continue receiving their grant. They need to bring in all the necessary documents, and SASSA will process this again according to the means test and let them know whether they qualify or not. And if the money wasn't available on the first grant payday and they were due for a review, it will then get paid out on the fourth payday that SASSA has now instituted in terms of grant payments to deal with reviews for people who are needing to be flagged that they are due to come in for a review.
Okay. All right, so that is very helpful. And what is the biggest mistakes that grant beneficiaries make, or not because they are careless, but because nobody has explained to them their actual rights?
This is so much of a challenge that we find every day. The grant system has evolved so fast in the last couple of years, and we've moved and shifted away from community cash pay points, where beneficiaries used to get their grants in cash and where people knew who the person that was paying them every month, to now a banking system which is anonymous, which requires a PIN. We've moved away from biometric authentication, where a person, you could use their thumbprints in order to get their grants, and we're asking people to transact in a world that they are not familiar with. Like you and I would use our cards on a daily basis, whereas a social grant beneficiary uses it literally once a month. And I think we just need to highlight every time to grant beneficiaries, protect your PIN. Protect your identity document and protect your bank card. Do not keep all of these three things together, and make sure that you put them in a place that is safe and only you know where it is, so that not even a third party in your own home can have access to it. We also know the elderly forget their PINs, and so they hand it over to the third party at a retailer or an ATM for somebody to help them, not realizing that sometimes people are not there to help, they're there to actually, make a quick buck or something. And so it's very worrying in that sense as well. So we would appreciate if beneficiaries tried by all means to take somebody that they trust with them, rather than just handing it over to a third party who's not a family member and somebody that they don't know within the banking sphere.
When it comes to money, Evashnee, no one you should trust. Exactly. But now you just reminded me something that I laughed about, is that once had the same problem. The idea is that they should keep their personal information very safe. Now, the final one, if you had 1 minute, just 1 minute, Evashnee, to become the national television and speak directly to SASSA beneficiaries in South Africa, what would you want them to remember always?
Always protect your personal information. Never share it with anyone.
Spoken like a true activist. Thank you so much, Evashnee. That was Evashnee. Evashnee is the regional manager of the Durban branch. It's at Black Sash. Well, Evashnee, that was very helpful, impactful, but very enlightening at the same time. So thank you so much for your time.
Thank you so much for having me.
We appreciate it a lot. Well, to you, African Echo people, until next time, goodbye.